Well, the majority of 2020 Democratic hopefuls headed to South Carolina Friday night for Jim Clyburn's annual world-famous fish fry event. 21 of the 24 candidates courted voters in the Palmetto State, and each had about 90 seconds to speak to the crowd in a lightning round style event. The event comes less than a week ahead of the first Democratic debate. CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns was actually there at the fish fry, somehow magically made it back to New York this morning. Caitlin, I don't know how you did that.
A lot of coffee.
That's all it took.
There's no one I would rather be with than you.
Love hearing that. Love hearing that. But give me a sense of what last night was like. What did you walk away with?
You know, it was a pretty unique event because it felt kind of like a hometown summer kickoff.
Yeah.
The fish fry was obviously the main attraction, and it just felt like people were kind of gathering by the river in Columbia to hear from these presidential candidates. A lot of people knew each other, a lot of activists and local lawmakers, but also people who were just kind of there to check out the crowd and talk to their neighbors and figure out kind of what to make of this crowded field. It was really interesting also to see all of the candidates together in one place at one time. This is the biggest venue that we've seen with all of these candidates in the same place in the same time. So it was just, there was a lot of fun color and interesting to see how they are each playing to South Carolina voters.
And we know former Vice President Joe Biden is actually ahead of the polls in South Carolina. You know, our usual warning, as we say, we can't see, it's so early in the process, but as of now, he stands at 45%. Bernie Sanders distant second, 18%. How was Biden received last night?
You know, his visit there came after a week of controversy for comments that he made about being able to work with segregationists. There were mixed reviews by people on the ground about Joe Biden. There is a really deep love for him there. Even voters that I talked to who were supporting other candidates, or at least interested in other candidates, noted how much they actually loved Joe Biden. He's been a fixture not only in Democratic politics nationally, but especially in South Carolina, and still has really deep ties there. And our polling, as you mentioned, shows him ahead, shows his strength really among African-American voters. But also, you know, voters are still kind of trying to assess the field. They know Joe Biden, they like him, but they're trying to figure out, should I give these other candidates a look? But I will say that while he was getting some criticism from his fellow candidates, a lot of people I talked to on the ground said about those controversial comments that, look, the party really needs to stick together. They were less concerned with those comments and more concerned with the possibility of Democratic infighting because their focus is on Donald Trump.
You know, when you talk about the voting population in South Carolina, 61% are black voters. The fact that Biden's ahead, can you gauge as to how the black voting is trending in South Carolina?
It's a really great point. And our battleground poll shows that 83% of African-American voters who are inclined to vote or support Joe Biden say it's because he served with Barack Obama, of course, who's very popular in the party, but particularly popular in South Carolina. He won that primary in 2008, and that really helped to catapult him through the rest of the process, and we know how that turned out. South Carolina is really interesting because it is considered kind of the gateway to the bigger, more diverse Super Tuesday states, places like Texas and California that have a really diverse electorate, high African-American turnout, and this is a constituency within the Democratic Party that is really fueling the base of the party right now, and particularly African-American women. And I talked to a lot of women voters in the state. They said they're focused on things like the economy, healthcare, and education, but they are all stressing that they want the party to stay unified.
You know, Elizabeth Warren, I heard, closed down the House. She was the last person to leave yesterday at the fish fry. She's still number 3 right now in the polls, but she is getting some momentum. How was she received? What are people saying about her?
She was received really well by this crowd, and she's actually doing pretty well among African-American voters, particularly among women. I was at an event in Houston where she spoke a couple of months ago where it was kind of geared towards women of color, and they really liked how she was able to back up her ideas with actual policy. So she certainly is on the rise right now in the Democratic primary. She's been running a really slow but steady race at this point, and she's been really focused on the ground game effort, not only in South Carolina, but also in Iowa. So she is notorious for staying till the last selfie. Joe Biden also did as well. He was the last person to leave. He took pictures with everybody, but his speech last night was the shortest of his career.
Is that right?
Arlene Quijano, I think, clocked it in at 1 minute and 19 seconds, which, you know, Joe Biden, that is not an easy feat for him.
That is so true. That is very true. You know, when you talk about Senator Warren, she said, I'm not going to attend this to criticize fellow Democrats. We know the debates in Miami with the Democratic candidates are just a few days away. Was this sort of a preview as to what their message might be?
I think it is. And it's interesting because Warren can afford not to take swipes at the frontrunner because she is on the rise. But others like Cory Booker and some others who were much more critical of Joe Biden, you know, they are lower down in the polls. They are looking for ways to break through, and they have to kind of show what they're capable of. And for some, that means going after Joe Biden. For some, that means focusing on their message. And I think that's what we're going to be looking for next week in Miami, kind of how all of these candidates present themselves. It's actually going to be kind of similar to what we saw last night because they're really only going to have a few minutes. Think about it. There's 10 people on one stage one night, 10 people on another stage the next night. A lot of candidates, it's very difficult to break through. So this offered them kind of a test case for that.
You know, you talk about issues that you're hearing from voters that they really want to hear about the issues. Was there anything in particular that really resonated that they want more of?
You know, we've been asking voters in South Carolina and in these early states what they think about the economy because the economy looks good on paper. Unemployment is low. President Trump always talks about how the economy is looking good, and that's going to be key to his own reelection message. But Democrats that I've talked to say that yes, the economy is getting better, they think, but it still isn't working for everybody. A lot of people told me they're concerned about the cost of health care. They're concerned about paying for their children's education or paying off their own loans for education, and also just general access to health care, especially in a state like South Carolina, which we were in Columbia, which is, of course, the capital, but it's actually a really rural state. And voters I talked to were very concerned about having access to health care.
That's so interesting to hear you say. You know, one person who was not there, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, he decided to stay in Indiana because of a police shooting, a police shooting of a black man that he decided to attend a rally. There was an interesting moment, Caitlin, I want to play for you, of him interacting with the crowd there.
Did you just ask me if Black Lives Matter? Of course, Black Lives Matter.
Then fire your cops! What about a black life? What matters about a black life to you, Mayor Pete? What matters about a black life to you?
The same thing that matters to me about my own.
How can you heal my pain? I wake up to this every morning. What can you say to me that'll comfort me that I'm finna get justice for my time?
I get the sense that he wasn't expecting that. He seemed a little bit taken back by that moment.
Absolutely. The mayor has been kind of on a really fast rise in the Democratic primary right now, and this was a reality check moment. He's been focusing on his tenure as mayor from a red state in a city like South Bend, but now this shows kind of the perils that come with that kind of job. This also is, you know, against the backdrop of all of the candidates meeting in South Carolina, where, as you mentioned, 60% of the electorate is African American. These are issues at the center of the Democratic primary right now, issues of race, inequality, and other items. And so this presents a serious set of challenges for him. So how he navigates this over the coming days is going to be really interesting to watch, especially as he takes time away from South Bend to participate in the debates. He's also slated to be in South Carolina today, speaking at the convention there.
Interesting. I'm curious if we hear more about this sort of moment or something from it in the debates next week.
Absolutely, right.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, I'm disappointed you didn't bring back a doggy bag with some of that fish fry.
No, you know,
was it good?
Too good. I ate it all in one sitting.
Fair
so
enough. A little
time.
Tabasco,
yes.
I keep hearing, is what you need.
Oh, yes, a little hot sauce. Always does the trick.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Great reporting this week out there in South Carolina.